In the past 200 years of paleontology, there's been some pretty incorrect educated guesses about dinos. There's also been completely wrong wild guesses and shots in the dark that fully miss the mark. But it's all a part of learning. So let's celebrate those mistakes and see some of the dinos that we got completely wrong. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault and you're watching Animalogic. Paleontology is super fun because very often you're very wrong. It's very easy to misunderstand what a bone was for or how parts fit together. Those mistakes can be pretty embarrassing but also hilarious. So let's take a look at some of the mistakes that left scientists with the most massive amounts of dinosaur egg on their face. Let's start with a classic episode from the Bone Wars. Edward Drinker Cope and Othniel Charles Marsh were duking it out paleontologically and trying to outdo each other by finding the biggest amount of fossils and describing the largest number of dinos. Cope's team was in Kansas in the summer of 1869, when they came across a gigantic marine reptile fossil from the Cretaceous. Yeah, back in those days, there was a seaway that connected the Arctic with what later became the Gulf of Mexico, and those waters were full of giant predators. The one Cope found had something that looked like a neck, but seemed to him to be a bit too dang long to be neck, according to him. It had 72 vertebrae and was over 7 meters long. For a bit of context, a giraffe has just 7 neck vertebrae and is 5 meters tall. So this neck would have 10 times as many vertebrae as the neck of a giraffe, and it would be bigger than a whole giraffe. If this was truly a neck, it would be the largest ever seen. So, fearing making an embarrassing mistake, Cope decided that this was actually the animal's tail, and put the skull on the other, shorter end. But he wouldn't have been on this list if he had been right, and his rival, Marsh, along with Marsh's mentor, Joseph Leidy, published a paper calling Cope out for being a dummy, and showed that this reptile, the Elasmosaurus, was really just that necky. And Cope had to put the skull at the end of its tail. Cope was so embarrassed, he tried to bury the journal with his original article, but the damage was done. It's literally been 150 years since his faux pas, and we're still talking about it. But don't feel too bad for him. He coped with his mistake by describing and naming over 1,000 animals. He's okay. Paleontologists had a really rough time back then, and there wasn't the huge wealth of knowledge we have today to rely on, or the entertainment for them to keep in good spirits while in the field. For me, I love listening to music and podcasts when I'm out in nature, and the new Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds are amazing for that. Their open-ear design means that you can listen to music but still hear the world around you. And whether you're on a dino dig or exercising or just walking around, they stay thanks to their ear hooks. They're super light too, so they're still comfy even after wearing them for hours. So they're lightweight, comfortable, and safe. And of course, they sound great. They have the same or better audio quality than much more expensive brands. I've been using them all the time since I got them. I wear them at work and while commuting. They're great because their battery lasts 36 hours and they connect easily to my laptop and phone at the same time, so I don't have to switch connections all the time. They're great gifts for your loved ones or for yourself. Animalogic viewers get a discount too, so click on the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/animalogicopen to get up to 20% off this holiday season. We're still not sure how Elasmosaurus used its cartoonishly long neck, but it seems to have helped it fish to some degree. This reptile held the record for the neck with the most vertebrae, until its cousin Albertonectes was discovered. This reptile had 76 neck vertebrae, which made him look kinda disproportionate, but hey, who are we to argue with evolution? Albertonectes was named that because it was found in Alberta, which was also part of the inland seaway where Elasmosaurus lived. The name means Alberta swimmer, but Really? Alberto Nectis? They knew what they're doing. Next, we have another neck mistake. Brontosaurus's snorkel. When Brontosaurus and sauropods were being reconstructed, they made no sense to paleontologists. They were around 4 or 5 times longer and heavier than an elephant, and from the bones alone, and without any similar living animals to compare them to, they seemed too big and awkward to be land animals. They might not even be able to hold themselves up. So instead of big elephants with the long necks, scientists saw them as big hippos with humongous snorkels. The idea was that they would do better in water, and they would just have their heads sticking out in the air to breathe. After all, the largest animals living today are air-breathing marine mammals, so sauropods could be a variation of the same evolutionary strategy. This is one of those ideas that makes sense if you don't think about it too much, but paleontologists do think of all of these things way too much, and it wasn't long until they started poking holes at this whale of a tale. The first issue is that as you go deeper, water pressure increases really quickly. And as animals with such long necks, it would have been virtually impossible to breathe on the surface if their lungs were 10 meters deep. For air to rush into your lungs, you have to expand your chest so that your airways have lower air pressure than the atmosphere. But if your lungs are 10 meters deep, they already have twice as much pressure as the air outside. It would be impossible for them to expand their chests enough for air to rush in. That also means that all of those movies and cartoons that you've seen where there's a guy scuba diving and breathing through a hose, that's all certified baloney. And also, paleontologists were maybe a bit too skeptical of Brontosaurus' ability to walk on land. Their legs were super thick, like Doric columns, and their joints were thick and weight-bearing, and their feet were padded. They had all the makings of a savanna mega-herbivore, but they just happened to live in a land before grass. Of course, they had other plants to eat. Their footprints have been found on land, showing that they walked in herds along floodplains. And lastly, if you've ever tried to walk on the bottom of a lake, you know how easy it is to get stuck. So imagine trying to do that while weighing over 20 tons. There's no way they could do that. So yeah, the idea that these dinos lived in water and used their long necks to stick their heads out of the water is thoroughly debunked. But it wouldn't be the last time we thought a guy was too weird to live outside of the water. It's hard to be more wrong than thinking a Brontosaurus was aquatic, but for a little while, scientists thought that Pterodactyl, the most classic flying reptile, was a creature of the depths. To be fair to Cosimo Alessandro Collini, the scientist who described it, the first pterodactyl specimen was discovered back in 1784. Napoleon hadn't graduated from military school, Spain still owned most of the Americas, and Charles Darwin hadn't even been born. So when he saw a weird animal with a long skull with teeth, it reminded him of a croc. The elongated arms with membranes around them looked like flippers to him. And the pterosaur's body plan was so weird that it didn't even register as reptilian. But to Collini's credit, he correctly rejected the idea that this was a sort of bat or bird. He just admitted that he had no idea what he was looking at and just called it an unknown sea creature. It took 50 years before there was enough evidence that these were reptiles with self-powered flight and not weird bog frog croc hybrids. Besides thinking that all weird reptiles must have been aquatic, one of the most common mistakes was not knowing where to put their weird appendages. This was the case with Stegosaurus. To us, it's one of the most recognizable dinos ever. But to the first paleontologists who studied it in the 1880s, it looked like an impossible mismatch of weird features. The first thing they noticed was that relative to body size, their brain was tiny. Maybe too tiny, like freakishly tiny, like the shrunken heads from Beetlejuice. So they assumed that this was just a very dumb dino. The idea that it had a brain the size of a walnut spread, and gave credence to the idea that all dinosaurs were hulking, slow-moving, glorified walking rocks. In reality, a Stegosaurus's brain was the size of a dog's brain. And also, brain size is not a direct measurement of intelligence. But to 19th century guys, it just seemed unlikely that a huge dino could be operated from a tiny brain. So their solution to the problem was, of course, they must have a second brain. Stegosaurus's spinal cord got really thick around the hips. This is a feature that many birds and reptiles have, and helps them store energy and improves their tail reflexes. But to scientists, it looked like the perfect spot for a butt brain. Their hips were not only confusing because of what was in them, but also what was on them. If I asked you to draw a Stegosaurus, the first thing you'd do is draw their back plates in a mohawk formation. But early paleontologists thought they were arranged more like a comb-over. They saw them as roof shingles, likely inspired by contemporary armed animals like pangolins and Asian rhinos. And finally, the Thagomizer was thought to have a lot of spikes and be just for display. So from dumb dino with 2 brains, shingled roof body, and decorative bouquet of spikes, our vision evolved to a browser with upright plates for display and a tail with a built-in nail bat. It was quite the glow-up. Similarly, Iguanodon was misinterpreted because we didn't know what to do with their thumb spikes. Iguanodon was the second dino ever described. The year was 1825, and to put it politely, we didn't know squat about spork when it came to dinosaurs. When Gideon Mantell described the animal, he put the spike on its nose, like a rhino or an iguana. And based on those animals, he made it a quadruped and exhibited it as a dragon rhino in museums. It took 50 years until new discoveries showed that although it was a quadruped, it could easily stand on its hind limbs when feeding or fighting, kinda like a bear. Most importantly, it showed that the spike wasn't a horn, but a built-in shiv. But we don't know for sure if it was for fighting, or for digging, or for something else entirely. The jury's still out. There are a couple of other high-profile cases of dinosaur mistaken identity, like the T-Rex, the Velociraptor, and the Therizinosaurus. But we've already spoken at length about them, so if you want to learn more about them, we've added links to those episodes in the description. But in a nutshell, Therizinosaurus was thought to be a strange sea turtle when it was really a bipedal, bird-like Freddy Krueger. T-Rex was seen as a lumbering, tail-dragging dummy that ate other dummies, but really, it was a smart hunter that balanced its giant head with its girthy tail. And Velociraptor was seen as a lizard with scythe-like hands, but was then discovered to be very bird-like, with clawed feet. Not knowing how to solve the puzzle that is an incomplete dino skeleton is one thing, but dinos were unfairly accused of crimes they didn't commit. This was the case for Coelophysis and Oviraptor, who were both thought to be baby-eating cannibals. When the first Oviraptor fossil was discovered, it was next to a clutch of eggs, which were misidentified as Protoceratops eggs. The thinking was that this individual was about to eat those eggs when it died, so it was named Oviraptor, which means egg thief. The eggs were later discovered to be Oviraptor eggs. So this thief was just a mom who died protecting her eggs. But the name stuck, and they're still known as egg thieves to this day. No formal apology has been issued. Similarly, the Coelophysis was found with tiny bones inside its ribcage. This caused them to be considered the prime example for dino cannibalism. Later studies showed that the baby bones weren't inside the Coelophysis, but beneath it. They had all died in a flood. A sad ending for the babies anyway, but you can't blame the Coelophysis for dying in an inconvenient place. So there you have it. These are just some of the many mistakes we've made, but there's still many others to explore, and we're still making mistakes every day. So as long as we're making new discoveries, there will be stuff to debunk. It really is an essential part of the scientific process. So what should we talk about next? Please let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every week. Thanks for watching, and see ya!